Welcome to Cyber Threat Thursday. I'm Kristin Judge from the Cybercrime Support Network, and I am so thankful to have my friend and colleague here, Steve Baker. Steve was the director of the Midwest region for the Federal Trade Commission when we met, and we did a lot of great work together, had some really fantastic events with the community. And now he is an international investigations specialist, which is a title I'm pretty jealous of. I've always wanted to be a private investigator. I know he's not quite doing that. But Steve, I would love to have you tell people a little bit about what you do, where you have gotten your experience, because today we want to talk about puppy and vehicle online scams. And I know you are one of the people on the forefront of educating consumers about these scams. So welcome to the program. And if you would just share with people a little bit about you and your background.
Sure. I spent over 30 years at the Federal Trade Commission, mostly doing consumer protection work, so looking at scams and frauds. Our office in Chicago did the very first set of cases against scams on the internet 25 years ago. And we also, at our office, did a lot of work on frauds that are international and worked a lot with criminal investigators, too. So after retiring from the Federal Trade Commission, the Better Business Bureau asked me to come on and do some in-depth studies of common frauds that people see all the time. So we've got about 13 of these that we've done so far. I'm working on one right now on how scammers use gift cards to get money from people. And the Better Business Bureau is a wonderful organization. If you really don't know it, they're very helpful. They know a lot about businesses, even that pretend to be in their areas, even if they're really not. They know a lot more than they put in their reports online. When we're doing investigations at the Federal Trade Commission, first thing we always did was call local Better Business Bureau. What do you know? Are these people really where they say they are? What do you know about them? And often they were very, very helpful. And they do a great job of getting information out to local media and reporters. And so the consumer education that they can do is just outstanding. So it's been a great effort here. And it's interesting to do the studies, and it's really great to have the Better Business Bureau getting them out to the people that need to hear them. And for the ones we're talking about today, of course, people and that are watching we're all consumers too. So we're all buying things from time to time. So this is news you can use, not just in a press capacity, but in your real life.
That's right. And the BBB, you and I worked with them all around the Midwest. I've worked with them all around the country. Amazing organization that's there and a trusted resource, along with the Federal Trade Commission. I don't think everybody probably understands how much the Federal Trade Commission does for us and to protect the citizens. It's almost like our consumer lawyer for the country. And would you share a little bit about your time at the FTC and what the FTC really does still for us today?
Well, the Federal Trade Commission is a civil agency, so it does not have criminal authority, but it does have the ability to go into federal court, get injunctions, freeze assets, get money back, and then once it's shut people down, it encourages follow-up criminal prosecutions. So it does a lot of different work. It's a small agency. The FTC is only about 1,200 people all told, including antitrust. So, and it's got a big mission, so it keeps really busy. It's got a lot of very, very talented people. It's not terribly political, and they do just really great work. And it's got to be the best bargain for your tax dollars that you're ever going to find.
I think so too. Small but mighty, and I love the content and the collateral that they put out. I've taken it with me all around the country because it's simple to understand, it's to the point, and it really helps people. So they have a lot also, I think, on vehicles, online scams, puppy scams, but the BBB research that you did is really thorough and, again, easy to understand. So dive into for me a little bit the puppy and the vehicle scams. I know when we talked about it, we were going to do them separately, but then we realized there's a lot of similarities. So share with the people what you know about the anatomy of these types of scams.
Well, sure. These days when people are looking to buy something, where do they go, particularly during these days of COVID? They go online. And there's tons of crooks that lurk online, running all sorts of different frauds. And two different ones we've done separate studies for the Better Business Bureau for. One is on online sales of puppies and pets, and another one on sales of online vehicles. And these are different groups that are doing these. But the puppy frauds or pet frauds, these are organized crime gangs, mostly tie back to Cameroon. they find pictures of cute puppies that they steal elsewhere on the internet, maybe steal a description, post them up for sale on the internet. So people are looking these days, you want a pet or a puppy, people are lonely at home, or they figure this is perfect time to add something to the family. And so they go online, they find a picture of a cute puppy, they can reach out and say they're interested. And then the scammer says, okay, well, here's the price for the pet. So you've got to send that usually with Zelle or Cash App. People send the money for the pet. They need money for shipping the pet by air. And if you send the money for that, then they come back and you need a special COVID compliant crate, whatever that is. And if you pay for that, then they come back with more money for the dog's abandoned in an airport, needs shots or food or water. And the puppy doesn't exist. They've just taken the stuff. And so people keep sending money until they figure out that it's a fraud and don't do it anymore, at which point a lot of the time the crooks say, well, gee, this puppy's stuck at an airport. We're going to report you to the FBI for animal abandonment for not paying more money for this puppy. Of course, it doesn't exist. This is so common with puppies and other pets that I think it's impossible to do any sort of search online for a pet without coming across the fraud. These are really, really incredibly common. There's tens of thousands of complaints. This scam operates worldwide. We stop there for a moment.
So it might be a good idea then to, when you're shopping for a puppy or looking to adopt an animal, start at either your shelter or go to someone who was in your driving vicinity. So you can actually drive to them. Because if you can drive and go see the puppy beforehand, this kind of scam can't really work. Would that be right?
That's exactly right. So my advice is always see the puppy in person. I know it's COVID, but still go to see it. You simply can't trust anybody that's selling online on any sort of forum. Doesn't matter where you're looking at online. There's still the crooks have infested the internet with their scams all over the place. So go see the pet first.
The puppy or the animal adoption websites, or where they're selling animals, it's a for-profit business. They don't necessarily take the time to vet all of those sellers, make sure there's a real puppy. No one on the back end of these companies is doing that, right? So you have to do your own due diligence.
You do, and even pet rescue sites. These folks have put their stuff up on those as well. The other thing they do sometimes is they copy the websites of legitimate breeders. I talked to one breeder in Florida, and they copied her entire website, including her family story and photos and everything, and simply just entered their own contact information. So sometimes if it pretends to be a breeder, you can also go to bbb.org, because the Better Business Bureau will have other complaints about this supposed pet breeder. And you can check places out at petscams.com too, which is a great volunteer group that tries to help with pets.
That's right. Petscams.com is really helpful. All right. So if you're looking for an animal, make sure you can see it in person first. Don't send money to someone you've never met. In general, that is pretty much for all scams. Don't send money to someone you've never met. Now, how are these scams similar to the vehicle online purchase scams?
The vehicle online purchase, again, people steal pictures of cars and trucks, farm equipment, post them online as for sale. And if you respond that and usually at a good price, often these ads will either say, my husband recently died and this car was his pet, or I'm a soldier and I'm about to deploy overseas and I got to sell the car quickly. So the price is right. People respond to the buyer. The buyer's like, yeah, I just got to get rid of it. So that's why I'm offering it such a good price. Again, it's anywhere on the internet you can look for a vehicle. They typically want the money through a bank-to-bank wire transfer, but supposedly that money is going to be paid to a third-party escrow company. Sometimes they claim it's being sold through eBay Motors, even though it really isn't. eBay really isn't involved. Or they set up websites of fake escrow shipping companies. They had set up like 25 of these that were supposedly in Springfield, Missouri, and none of them actually existed, or they're using addresses of other businesses or other car dealerships that have previously gone out of sale. So you send $5,000 or $10,000 for a car, a skid steer, food trucks. Very popular this year are sales of non-existent recreational vehicles. A lot of people during COVID thought they could get out around the country with their family. There was a big demand for for RVs, not that many real ones for sale. So the crooks have made out for those. So again, people are sending lots and lots of money. They're often using the eBay name or having people buy eBay gift cards sometimes to pay for these non-existent vehicles. But it is a huge problem. BBB hears about this like every day. And again, it's a worldwide problem.
Yeah, and Demetria put the studies for the puppy scams and the vehicle scams in our link. So if anybody wants to read them, I highly recommend, because Steve has such a wealth of knowledge, but there's even more in there that we don't have time in this small program to go over. But it's important too to talk to people in your lives. If they say they're starting to look for an animal, or they're starting to, oh, I need a new car, bring this kind of thing up. Send them to a link for these, scam research that Steve has done with the BBB. We have to be proactive with people in our lives. If we hear and we have the good information, you've educated yourself, don't just keep it within your own household. Help other people, because it's really about talking to others. I've also found that when someone is potentially about to be a victim of a scam, if someone else has already shared with them that the scam happened to them, this happened to my family. My mother-in-law was going to be scammed. She was on the phone with someone, but she remembered, this happened to my friend. And my friend told me, I'm going to hang up on this person. Not that her daughter-in-law works in cybersecurity and scams and, had taught her about this for years and years. It was because her friend had heard about it. So it's really important, and told her about it. It's important that you talk to people about this. Would you agree with that idea?
Absolutely. And people need to complain as well. We know from FTC studies that 90% of fraud victims never complain to the Better Business Bureau law or law enforcement. They feel guilty. They feel embarrassed. They should not feel embarrassed. I tell people, don't get embarrassed, get mad. These are professional criminal groups. That's what they do. They're very good at what they do. They get tons of people. You're not alone. And unfortunately, a lot of us think that, okay, nobody but a really dumb person would fall for these scams. And I can tell you categorically that is not true. They get very normal people just like us every day. They've thought of every question you might have. They've got excuses for everything. You just don't know where to look. Somebody told me once it's like a magic trick. If you see a magic trick, it's not a cult, but you don't know quite what is going on. If they slow down and stop and show you, you say, oh my God, it's so obvious now after the fact. But while you're going through it, it is not at all obvious.
Well, and that's your point earlier about a military person saying, oh, I have to go overseas. I have to hurry up and do this. On scamspotter.org, the website that we created with Google, we have 3 golden rules. Number 1, slow down. Because a lot of these scammers come at you with an urgency. Oh, hurry up. You got to make the decision right now. I've got 17 people who all want the same puppy. If you really want this cute one, there's some they're pulling on your heartstrings, or just trying to make you act quickly so you don't see what's going on. So just slowing down alone could change the trajectory of people's scam history in some ways.
Yeah, no, and it's a big lie. I mean, people can detect small inconsistencies, but the idea that the whole thing, the car or the puppy, doesn't exist at all is more than a lot of people can grasp. They're thinking, it might be deception in how much the fees are, a little bit of fudging here, but the idea that top to bottom is just a fraud is hard for a lot of us to grasp.
Yeah, it is. It is, because most of us are pretty good people who would never think to do that to someone else. They're like, wait, so someone's trying to do that to me? I think we all try and, assume people have good intentions to start with. I'm so glad you brought up the report fraud at FTC too. I'm so excited to see that they've made their form smaller, a little easier to use. And so hopefully our goal at CSN is to get way more people to report. You're absolutely right. The reporting is low right now, but we need to have millions of people reporting every year, because then we can see more of these patterns. And then we can also help educate people, because we'll know what's happening out there. If no one tells us what's happening, how can we help educate people on what to look out for? So I think reporting cannot be talked about enough. It's really important that people report. It doesn't take that much time. It may not necessarily help you get your money back, but it certainly can help us go after some of these scammers. And you have seen a lot of evidence of scammers actually being prosecuted. Thanks to the Baker fraud report, I get to read about them too. Would you talk to people a little bit about, yes, we are catching some of these people, and you talk about it in the Baker fraud report every week?
Yeah, a lot of these scams operate worldwide, not only in the US, but Canada, basically all over the world. And so one of the things I've developed is a free weekly newsletter that goes out around the world talking about scams, prosecutions, arrests, new research that's been done, TV, movie programs that talk about it, and to try to bring everybody together and share what's going on. There's the amount of fraud out there. I used to say when I was at the FTC, I said, if I didn't do this for a living, I would never believe how frequent this is, how common it is. And it is incredibly common. And there are people being caught. There are being prosecuted. Sometimes not as much as we'd all hope, but still it is happening. And the prosecutors and the law enforcement can learn from each other. So the free weekly newsletter I put out talks about what's going on, who's being caught, new scams that are going on, and hopefully that'll educate a lot of media people who subscribe to it, and law enforcement people want to see what their colleagues are doing, or may want to borrow an indictment or a criminal complaint to copy from where they're doing it, or hopefully see what's coming up with new frauds. So it's easy to sign up. You can just send me an email, steve@bakerfraudreport.com. I'll happily sign you up, or I have a website at bakerfraudreport.com that's got a sign up page. And like I said, the price is right. Comes out every Thursday morning. And we try to put a little bit of humor in it too. So hopefully people will enjoy it.
Our team, I know, really enjoys the humor. And Demetria did put the link in the post for us here. But it's my favorite newsletter, I have to say, that I get every week, because there is something in it for everybody. Law enforcement can learn from it, prosecutors, consumers, small businesses. But it gives me that little glimmer of hope, because you're the one who's helping me see. I don't know where else to find out where these frauds are being prosecuted, but we are actually catching some of these bad guys. And I think a lot of people that don't report think, well, no one's ever going to get caught anyway, so why would I bother taking my time to report? But there's organizations internationally that start putting together the pieces from a $500 fraud here, the same 500 there, the same 500 there. When it starts turning into $5 million, this is potentially a big ring. And so you talked a little bit about the crime rings. Could you talk to me a little bit more about what do we see on an international scale? Who are these bad guys?
Well, for example, on the cars, we did not talk about that. Turns out that these are mainly people from Romania. These are Romanian organized crime gangs. Apparently they started in the early days of the internet right after communism fell there. They're basically all over Europe, and there's people here in the United States. So as you'd imagine, these have to be organized operations. So there's some people that are going to register domain names. There's some people that are going to take steal pictures of the puppies or cars that they're going to post online. There's some people that got to collect and launder the money. So there's different specialized cells. These are very big. These are organized enterprises. They're organized crime. There's no doubt about it. I just saw this morning that in Kentucky, Secret Service had prosecuted a gang of Romanians, even bringing some over. So they got a criminal conviction of a Bulgarian guy that they announced this morning. He was laundering the money for these non-existent cars and other vehicles through Bitcoin, and then getting it back into bank accounts in Romania. So these are sophisticated frauds. They're a challenge for a lot of law enforcement. As soon as they hear that the people behind them are overseas, they're like, oh my God, this will take forever. Even if we catch them, we got to extradite them, and that's really difficult. It's not as hard as people think it is to do sometimes. And the other thing is, with almost all these frauds, there are people physically in the United States that are helping. If nothing else, they're acting as money mules to collect the money, take a cut, and send the rest overseas. It's true for a lot of different scams. And so at least the money mules can be found. And again, all the complaint data helps give patterns and helps to find those. So all this fraud is, it sounds like, how serious can this be? Is this really pretty rare? I wish I could tell you with the cars and puppies that this is rare, but it's not. It's incredibly large, incredibly sophisticated. And if you do a search, you're going to come across them. So it's good to see law enforcement. These are big enterprises, and they understand how the internet works and registrations. And unfortunately, who is just not very helpful anymore. And a lot of the domain name registrars, unfortunately, in my experience, don't care, even if they know it's a fraud. As long as they're getting paid, they figure it's not their problem.
Yeah, that brings up a really good point. I've been doing a lot of investigating and talking to partners, and there's something called Scam Advisor that I've been using now. We've been working with the folks in the Netherlands that run scamadvisor.com, and you can put in the URL of a place where you think you want to buy something from, and it'll give you a score based on what other people have reported, and also based on when did the domain name, actually when do they register the domain name? If the domain name's been around for 2 weeks or 20 years, then there's a good chance, you can tell which one is probably fraudulent. And they do a lot of back end, computer machine learning stuff to say, yeah, there's a chance this website is a scam, or there's a chance that this website is pretty legitimate. So that's something that I've been using. And then I've also started using Trend Micro Check, which is a newer platform that's coming to the US, where I can just put it in my Google Chrome and I can click on the link before I go there, and it'll say if they've seen that it has any potential scam reports to it. So we're not there yet to have something that will really say, yes, for sure, this is a scam or this is not. But I think people should start looking at what tools they can have and don't just buy something quickly. And I tell my 20-something-year-old kids too, don't buy it on your phone. Because when you're on your phone on that little screen, I mean, mine's a little screen, you're less likely to see, okay, what does this website really look like? Oh, is it another country? Is it .com? But if you just say, oh, I really want to buy new shoes, and then you see the shoes and you click and buy them from that site that comes up, you might not be able to see it so well on your phone, I've found. You might not be able to read about the return policies. And would you agree that it's probably better to have a bigger look at a new site that you've never gone to? Like if you're going to, Amazon or something like that you've gone to 100 times, it's different. But if you're looking to buy something on a new site, should you have a bigger view of it potentially?
Oh, that's absolutely true. Particularly if you've got a dog breed that claims to have been around for 15 years with a long history, and it's 2 weeks, it's a fraud. The other one, if if the website is registered in Russia or Panama, okay, it's probably a fraud. But so you can dig into things like that, and there are some people that do, including I'm sure some of your audience, to find some of these people and figure some of the commonalities.
Yeah.
But these folks are pretty sophisticated. They're pretty good. Not as smart as they think they are.
Yeah.
And somebody that knows to look at, like, for example, how old the website is can figure it out. But
Yeah.
but there's a lot there.
We're living in a worldwide pandemic, and you can't have many conversations without saying, how is COVID affecting this? So how is COVID affecting the puppy and the vehicle scams from what you've seen in particular?
Well, they've had a big effect on both. I mean, there's a lot of people that are lonely, that have been stuck at home, so they're looking for companionship, or they want to add a pet to their family. And so there's been a huge demand for dogs. Some of the shelters have even been empty, I know, where people might otherwise adopt. So crooks know this. They advertise online. They use the COVID as an excuse on why you can't come see the pet in person. They also then explain that sometimes you have to have a COVID compliant crate to fly the dog in, whatever the hell that is. I don't think it even exists. Or you need special COVID shots, which again don't exist.
No COVID shot for dogs. Yeah, even people can't get their COVID shot yet. So
Yeah, and the cars and vehicles, again, there's been a shortage of vehicles, and so they fill a demand online, and again, use the virus as an excuse on why you can't see it in person in advance. And so complaints in both those areas have just shot up incredibly. Complaints on puppies to the Better Business Bureau doubled in 2020, and losses tripled from what they were the year before that. And similar things that happened with vehicles, especially with recreational vehicles. So the crooks take advantage of the virus. They always do, and you've simply got to be careful. The one thing, since so many people are using like live video anymore, that you might be able to do with a puppy scam or maybe a vehicle scam. If it's a puppy scam, ask them if you can do a Zoom conference with them with a puppy. No crooks are going to be able to do that. So that might be a way to do it. Whether you could do the same thing with a vehicle, I don't know. You'd have to be outside probably, so it might be a little more difficult. But maybe some of these tools could be turned around them. But the crooks have taken advantage of the virus big time and all sorts of different frauds, and they've just been really cooking.
Well, and I think, on our cell phones now, our smartphones, there's about 17 different apps that I could use that I could video call a friend right now. There's Signal, there's WhatsApp, there's Messenger, like there's video calls, there's Google, there's a way to see people on video. So if someone's not willing to show you something on video, that should be a red flag for sure. Even if they have to be in their house for the Wi-Fi to work, they can point their phone towards the car outside so you can actually see the car. If the puppy is really there, they'll be able to show you the puppy. So it's really important that you take that time. And part of what Scam Spotter says, number one, the golden rule was to slow down, but number two is to spot check. Make sure that you take a minute to see what people are telling you is actually real. Again, it's just taking your time. And then the third one is never send gift cards as a form of payment. Gift cards are not payment. They are meant to be gifts. But as you say, Bitcoin and gift cards are really the way they're asking people to pay for some of this. Is that correct?
They're moving towards that. The pet scams have really started using Cash App and Zelle big time. Those are major payment things. So the pets have started to use gift cards. The vehicle stuff usually does bank-to-bank wire transfers. That's what they want because there's so much money involved. Although they may sometimes get large gift card sales too. But gift cards are a huge problem. I mean, the Federal Trade Commission just announced that of complaints directly to them over the last year, a quarter of the people paid with gift cards. And the key there, what people really need to understand is if you read the numbers off the back of the gift card, scammers can take advantage and cash those out. And a lot of people don't know that. They think that the crooks would have to have the physical card. They don't. They just need the numbers. So if you communicate nothing else to people you're talking to, let them know that.
Yeah, and I've heard that the banks, the people that are trained to be the teller at the bank, and some retail cashiers are being trained, thanks to the REN ISAC and the American Bankers Association, are being trained that if someone comes in, one of their customers or someone they haven't met before even, and needs $1,000 in gift cards, $20 a piece gift cards or something like that, they're trained to say, are you familiar with this gift card scam where people ask you to pay? It's a fine line that you don't want to say, who are you sending these to? It's not your business, but you could say, hey, there's these gift card scams. Have you seen a full adoption of that kind of training for retail or banks over the nation? Or what do you think about that?
Well, there's been efforts. A lot of the larger retailers, CVS, Walgreens, Target, have really made efforts to do that education for the tellers. And the tellers see it too. I've talked to them myself. And what the scammers do is they stay on the phone, sometimes for several hours. So people go from location to location buying gift cards. And they tell them what story to tell the tellers that might stop them. If the tellers see somebody that shows up with a bunch of gift cards and they got the phone stuck in their ear, that's a good sign that the scammer is keeping them on the line.
I had no idea they were doing that. That is incredible. Yeah.
Yeah, and so the cashiers and tellers do try. They are authorized, at least several of the major retailers, to just tell people you won't sell them gift cards because it's too suspicious.
I hadn't heard that. Oh.
Yeah, and Walmart even gives people rewards if they stop people from sending money.
There we go. That's great. That is fantastic to hear. Yeah, we've got to start really incentivizing the people that can help stop this. And a lot of times I feel like until the scams are not making money for the bad guys, they're just going to keep coming. So it's up to people like you and I and the BBB and the FTC and all the folks working in this great space to say, look, stop putting the money out there. Do not send money to someone you don't know unless you've done all your due diligence and you've taken these steps, and don't send gift cards as payment. So I want to wrap up by encouraging people to sign up for the Baker Fraud Report. Demetria put the link here. It is one of the best newsletters you'll read, regardless of where you work. If you run a company, if you're in an accounting department, if you're law enforcement, a consumer, small business, it's got something for you, and it is quite funny. So thank you, Steve. We have to try and keep our sense of humor here, or we'll all want to just give up and stay in our bed in the morning. But thank you so much for what you've done in your whole career and what you continue to do. And we're so thankful to have you as a partner at CSN.
Thanks for having me today.
Take care. This is Kristin Judge from Cyber Threat Thursday at CSN. Check out Cyber Tip Tuesdays on Tuesdays at 3:05 Eastern and Cyber Threat Thursdays at 1:15 Eastern. We're going to have some really great guests coming up in the next month. We've got NordVPN, we've got Microsoft, AT&T, Capital One. So stay tuned and keep an eye on my LinkedIn channel. Thanks so much, everybody, and stay safe.